No, that is. All right, it's
We're
noon.
missing Tim.
Yes, we are.
COVID.
And Jim.
Like case.
All right, it's noon. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and I will open it up for citizen comments. All right, there being no citizen comments, we'll move on to the active agenda. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of September 10th, 2024. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve those minutes, accept those minutes.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. I'll open it up for discussion. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm gonna recuse myself since I was here last time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got Joe recusing himself. All those in favor say aye of approving the minutes.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Next item is approval of invoices. I'm gonna do these in two separate since one of them is larger, so I want to discuss it more. So the first item is O'Sullivan Legal services for September, the amount of $132.50. I didn't entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passed. Second invoices for City of Lewiston reimbursement for East Orchard Sewer, $101,974.75. I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second. I'll open up for discussion. Anybody have any questions?
Just looking through, it looked like the bulk of it was for the core samples, and I'm wondering if do they have any results?
We will be talking about that
Okay.
today. Yeah, so I did break it down for you guys, and there's a little spreadsheet at the end, because it can be confusing the way that the invoices come through.
Yeah.
And so I divided them up into kind of sections. So the top section, you can see East Orchard Sewer. So this is that original contract we had done for design work. So this top bulk, that's already been paid. The second part is the management reserve, which is part of that design work that you had previously approved. So you can see the total amount that was approved, what they've charged for those two items. Middle of the section is the rock boring, and again, amount approved, amount we've been charged for those items. And then segment 7 is the full design, which again, you had approved for the $15,950 and the amounts that we have been charged. So those all match up with the invoices, just to track what had been approved versus what's being charged, to make sure we are all on the same track.
Okay. All right, any other discussion or question?
No, I appreciate you putting this spreadsheet
Yeah.
together.
It's hard to, just because of the way that the invoices are done, like I'm sure that it makes sense to them, it does not make sense to me, and so I put it in a spreadsheet so I can make it make sense to me.
All right. So all those in favor of, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item is review of financial summary. Did I hear we don't have a financial summary?
We do not,
Okay, so there is no financial summary.
we'll review,
So we'll
hopefully
review that
both months next month.
next month.
Then, because bank statements haven't arrived yet,
Yeah, too early.
we deal with that at the board sometimes.
All right, so next item is rock boring study review with Merrick.
Okay, so, I have several representatives from Public Works and Ryan from Merrick. And we have this fun, GIS rack that they have created for us. I think we're gonna turn off the lights
Oh, wow.
so that they can play with it. Joe, do you want to like drive so you can like?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you for, so the rock, Eric came and they said, did all the rock boring up there, and, rather than having it be, just a spreadsheet of text, or JS Group was able to kind of quickly put this together as a visualization where they extruded it up from the ground surface, so you can kind of see how deep it was to rock. I think you could forward the link to all of them if they wanted.
Yes, we did.
Oh, you already did?
Yep, we did with their meeting packet.
Okay, I don't know if any of you followed the link, but this is what you can see. The green ones are actual manholes that we've installed with previous parts of the project at that depth, so it's not exactly the same as the depth rock, because some of us had rock excavation, but it kind of, for us, helped kind of fill in like how deep the sewer was to compare it to the rock, if that makes any sense, at those places where it was adjacent to as a quick visual reference. Yeah, I don't know exactly what all I was expecting there, but certainly the thing that really stood out to me is what was different than what I would have thought is how shallow this, like just consistently shallow this whole block was.
Shallow soil, the rocks right close.
Yeah, that's what that means, is that it's a shallow distance.
Which block is that, Joe?
Oh, let's see. Oh, so rip on, from, was it 21st to 20th? I think.
So, on your maps, it's, segment like 15.
So the translation, does that mean that would be a really expensive section to maintain depth on?
Most likely, like unless there's some reason we can build it really shallow.
So we're looking northwest.
Yeah,
Yes.
generally I was,
So like this area right here, this is segment 20. So 1918 moving that way. So this is Rippon coming across. So this is 15 and then going this.
Are the black ones where you hit oil?
they're just extra deep, so yeah. Where are we, they're kind of from light color, like the color ramp they use, yeah, from dark blue to really light. But, I guess unless you have any more specific questions there, I was gonna turn it over to Ryan to talk a little about how we've been using that information going forward, and then kind of just a status on where we are with the design for East Orchards. For you.
No, just so I orient myself, we're looking, the top of the map is north.
Yeah, it's looking northwest,
So it's like.
right there. So
So,
we're kind
so
of,
the bottom line of blues would be, Richardson or Hemlock.
so like right here
Uh-huh,
is Ripon.
that's Rippon.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then, yeah, 21st Street coming up here.
Yeah.
And then crossing down into Lindsay Creek Road there, on the other side of the orchards. But a lot of it was, generally, I'd say it was deeper on average than I was thinking, so I think that's generally good. Thank you.
Okay, I could add a little bit there too, so the rock depths really only, are kind of half the picture. So if the rock depth is shallow, that might be okay if the existing topography, the ground surface is also sloped. It's where the topography of the ground surface is opposite to where the rock depths that you run into the large rock excavation issues. So as an example, one of the segments that you guys asked us to look at and work on the design is the Corral segment 7, so it's across the top of Lindsay Creek Road. You can see that the rock depths are pretty shallow, but the slope generally is toward Lindsay Creek from the east. So so that works. So you can actually, as long as you construct the sewer relatively shallow, it kind of, the ground surface follows the rock profile. And so it's generally, you're pretty close to following the rock profile as well when you, in order to get your sewer slope. So that's one of them is this segment that we have designed, and that's the one that we were talking about a minute ago. And then the other, three, I guess, which was one first, it's this one.
Yeah, and,
This is 26. So yeah, so these are really the segments that we were looking at. The other, so 17, 18, and 19 were the ones that you guys decided that you wanted to proceed with from a kind of the next project standpoint. So with that, we've got design plans put together for those. In addition to probably, I would say 90% plans for the drill segment. And then on your I gave you a handout that kind of included updated cost estimates. We actually realized this morning to kind of reflect 2023 pricing versus 2024. To kind of, we're kind of at that point where it'd be good to make a decision on, number one, if you wanna advertise for a project this winter. And two, what you want to get done, which segments you want us to include. So we've got a lot of opportunities here. If you recall, we also have, there's a segment over here on Pearl. It's a short stretch. I believe it's this one right here. That was segment number one. We also have that designed. I think you guys have decided you weren't really that interested in it, but we have it. It's included in there as a cost estimate. So we've got this segment one. We've got 17, 18, 19, and then the top of grill. So we've got, those are all included in the 5 segments included on your cost estimate there. And my understanding from the last meeting was that essentially 17, 18, 19, those blocks on 21st, were the ones that, or excuse me, 20th, were the ones that you guys were most interested in. I think there's of course gotta be a nexus with with the funding that's available. And so we would be looking for some direction fairly soon on how you guys want us to package those, if you want to proceed with the project.
So, at this point in time, is there any, segment, you would have to blast rock if we wanted to build in it?
So almost, I would say with few exceptions, there's some rock excavation in all of these. Generally speaking, so even in this original design, there was a fair amount of rock X. They were able to hammer through it relatively well.
Oh, okay, so no blasting.
No blasting. No, we actually, we decided we would allow blasting in kind of this section that's kind of outside of the residential areas, but didn't really make sense to allow blasting inside of that. So if you look at the rock profiles, there's actually 2 depths that they'll give us on those borings. One is what they call soft rock. So that's when they're hammering it and it kind of gets resistance. The probe stops going in as fast. And then they keep hammering and eventually that probe essentially will stop. So there's those 2 depths. The shallower rock, they call it soft rock. It's basically diggable with an excavator. It's still challenging digging, but you can dig it with an excavator. Below that, you're pretty much using a rock hammer, or some other method. And so you can see on, I actually included on the table here, rock excavation on 17, 18, 19. So part of the reason why this ended up so much rock X, even though you see that the rock depths are pretty deep here, is because we designed this essentially so that you could pick up rip-on. So we had to make a decision, either make it deep enough to pick up rip-on, serve that by gravity, or decide that rip-on is not going to be served by gravity. And so this design currently is deep. It's exceptionally deep through this section, and so you're actually in rock. With just these 3 segments, you're about $400,000 in rock excavation, about 2,000 yards of rock. So it's
So how deep do we go from minimum level to a maximum level? How deep?
I can tell you that real quickly here. Okay, so excavation wise at Rel and 20th. It's approximately, well, to existing bottom of manhole, it's about 18 feet, but we anticipate coming into that manhole a little more shallow than that. So that depth of sewer line right there is about 10 feet. roughly. We get 10 feet, yeah. You get to, Alder and 20th, and the depth, it's quite a bit deeper. Let's see, 64 to 47, you're about 17 feet roughly at Alder and 20th. It kind of stays there up through, what is that? So Alder Yeah, it stays pretty deep all the way to Powers, actually. Powers, it's about 12 feet roughly. But it's somewhere 17 to 12 throughout that section. And the majority of the rock excavation is certainly between the south of Alder. That's where the majority of that rock excavation is. By the time you get to the next manhole to the south of Alder, which I think is right in here, the rock dives off pretty quickly. You're out of rock at that point. So yeah, the majority of the rock excavation is in this, and in this section right here.
Thanks for looking it up. I didn't realize it was that deep.
Yeah, I know in the initial project, yeah, we can see that green manhole right there is the existing manhole. I'd say it's close to 20 feet deep right there. So all along 20th, both of these were pretty deep. A lot of, I mean, just really, if you think about this, the orchards, they kind of crest along this segment. And so anything kind of in the middle, halfway between north and south, that's where the sewer line's gonna have to be the deepest, because you're gravity feeding everything to the north. You gotta get across that hill, and so it's gonna be deepest in that segment. If that makes sense. Looking forward, if we talk about constructing this as designed, looking at this rock profile, yeah, it's a little bit shallow here, not very deep to rock. But as it increases going this direction, I would anticipate, as an example, I know this slopes that direction. I would anticipate that there's gonna be minimal rock excavation in that next segment on Red Line.
And that segment would be
That's 19.
15 or
That would be
19.
The really shallow one is 15.
15, yeah. But that's the one I would anticipate, there not being a ton of rock excavation in that area. Because the sewer main at this point is reasonably shallow. So just because the rock is shallow, our sewer main is also shallow.
So, like, the engineer brain in me is working, and I'm thinking about all the ways to evaluate which ones we want to get done first. And there's a side of me that says, okay, look for economic impact. Maybe if we can open up lots and open them up to more construction, and then getting more property taxes and more housing, that might be one metric. But I'll tell you what you're telling me now, I start thinking about, is there like one trunk that's gonna be the deepest that all the other ones are gonna flow into, and we really need to concentrate on that to enable the rest of the project? Maybe that's the way to look at it. And I'm kind of, we could decide, but I feel like I'm shooting in the dark. I would like, I guess, a little more recommendation from the engineers about which ones we would choose, because I don't feel like I have, the information to make the best decision myself.
So
Maybe they're all the same, but
the map that you have.
yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So the map that you have in there is actually one page of a study that we did back in 2019 or somewhere in there, 2019 probably. And that's exactly what it looked at. Basically took the costs from the original trunk line
Uh-huh.
and applied those on a per foot basis. So we didn't look at rock depth, we didn't look at it, we just said, hey, based on the cost from the original project, here's how much we think each of these segments is gonna be. And then we looked at, okay, how many houses are existing, how many do you think there could be infill? And we assigned a cost per potential connection. And that's how these three segments were identified.
Mhm.
So since then, of course, we know that there's significantly more rock decks. And the question hinges on whether or not you really want to get it clear out to Ripon or not. So if you guys wanted to stop prior to that, I think this is.
That's 21st.
That's 21st. This is
So
21st.
this is
That's
20th.
20th. Okay.
So these are the ones that you guys have been on.
Right, so this is the majority of the rock X's right through this segment. And it's only along rock edge, it's only that 17 feet deep, because we wanna set this manhole deep enough to be able to sewer this by gravity. If you don't decide to sewer this by gravity, we could shallow this up, and it's probably gonna stop, you know, somewhere back in here. That makes sense, and that would eliminate the ability to sewer any of this on gravity.
I remember, and I believe Joe has talked about this before when he presented, so it flows west-east. So we've been looking at these farthest segments, right? This is the edge of our area that has been planned out. And so getting this portion of the line in opens up the ability to do all of these cross streets.
That's what I was just jumping up to add was that, the other thing in that study they did a really good job of was just talking about how many other segments have to be built for each one of those segments to connect into to make the flow networking work. You know, you can't just build, we talked about 15 being all that, can't just build 15, it doesn't do anything unless you have all the prerequisite
Right.
downstream segments. And so the stuff that we're talking about having designed now, the 7s and 17, 18, and 19 are really just because they are the downstream ones. They're the ones that show up on that list the most about sort of like, if the goal is to, we looked at which ones would give the best benefit cost, and that sort of led us to the Cedar Avenue project, which we did. And we had money for kind of one. And then it was, well, we're trying to get it to the point that, you know, at some point, we're gonna be within a block of every lot that we can sewer by gravity. You know, so then if you do have a bigger developer come in, you can say, well, you know, sewer might not be in front of where you're at, but it's within a block. And, you know, it's in the vicinity now, like that's sort of an intermediate goal that we talked about. And so having those ones on the very downstream end really was sort of like building the backbone of the system. Like,
Right.
you get the benefit of what's adjacent that they can serve, but they serve a much bigger area uphill.
So the way I was thinking about it, kind of like Joe's saying, only phrased a little different. Did the rock study change your opinions of the value of 17, 18, 19?
No, I think if we'd had all of the rock study done before we picked 17, 18, and 19 as our next phase, we might have picked it less quickly. Or, you know, we might have deliberated it a little harder, probably. Because we'd have kind of had a better idea what the cost estimates would be for those segments versus other ones before we really kind of did the whole design work. But I think we would have probably still came out at the end saying, we're building a system for the long term that serves the whole area. Yeah, this is the place that we want to emphasize. I think that's where we would still come down.
And then the other thing is, I've done like 2 homes with septic systems. One had a pump, one had just gravity feed. The gravity feed was like, it just worked all the time. And so, you know, my gut reaction from that is let's do the gravity feed, which means digging deeper, right? Yeah, but I'm not sure if that, you know, my personal experience scales to something like this, but.
Well, obviously, thank you for making that point, because I was gonna try to say that if you didn't. Because we, it's hard to overstate how intensive of like the labor and the O&M costs for running pump stations is compared to gravity sewer collection systems. There's a lot of small pump stations, and I mean, that's.
So my experience scales up.
Oh, it does. It probably, yeah.
It
Had
runs
lots
down
of
the hill
zeros.
stages for the-
It's kind of the same thing. I think, even if they're, you know, we build them so they're reliable and everything, but, you know, pumps wear out. So like every 25 years, you're at least, you know, really looking at replacing a lot of stuff. And then power goes out, so you need to.
Yeah, that's, was another thing that I was thinking about. What if the power goes out for 2 days, then does stuff back up?
Yeah, so like managing backup power or.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. So yeah, we have a strong preference, like just because it's more expensive maybe to build, like we'd have to,
Right.
we still think it's
Yeah.
worth it to do things and avoid putting in pump stations.
Yeah, and my gut reaction is, you know, when I'm working on things at home, I tend to wanna take the largest pain early and make that enable the best, you know, follow-on building, you know what I mean? So it might be like, better for us to get that main deep trunk, facilitate the rest of the building, even if we don't serve as many houses initially. But we're basically sacrificing short term to enable the long term.
Do it right the first time.
Yeah, I'd probably be more inclined to do something like that. But you guys know this far better than I do. That's just my gut feel. I would probably just go with your recommendation, but
So kind of looking at a couple of things on here. So, you know, this panel's fairly shallow, but we've got good slope this direction. You can see that the rock deepens up. So it's likely that this rock is fairly flat, but yet the ground surface comes up. Likewise, this one, this is pretty deep here. You've got deep rocks. I don't see any rock excavation likely in this segment. This one, we actually already did a preliminary design on it at one point. We have, because this shallow rock was here, we've also got a pretty deep manhole here. So we actually have this split, this half going this direction, this half going this direction. So we've kind of got a way to get around that. And so really, if you think about it, this segment, this one, and this one unlocks really all three of those. I think those next projects are you're gonna get a more length per dollar.
Yeah.
And then likewise across the top of Lindsay Creek here too, and it opens up that entire eastern end of things.
how long do these systems usually last? Like,
It should be 100-year sort of systems.
yeah. Before the pipe breaks down and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the difficulty is like the plastic sort of materials just haven't been around long enough to have a good, I guess, proof that they've been doing well, like PVC and stuff, so.
So basically, we do this and we don't touch it probably for 100 years.
Probably, and
Yeah.
if they may have something better and cheaper to line and extend the life of it then than we do now, but now, you know, we do a lot of pipe bursting once things get old enough that they're kind of in poor shape and needing to be rehabbed.
Mhm.
So then you get value from your alignments, because you're not having to dig everything up. You have to pull if it's a liner, you just reline it and they have, you know, remotely go in and cut holes for the services back in. And then otherwise you burst it, you still have to dig up each service, but it's a lot faster and
What size of mains would you anticipate in these areas?
this should all be, I think, 8-inch. If I remember right.
I know Grill is 8-inch. Girls, I think it's already. Nope, we've welded it on 21st, at least part of it. I think we're 12 here, and then I think it's 8 after that.
Are we trying to approve which sections we're doing today? Is that what we're trying to do?
So there's not, an action item on, your agenda today. Back in March, though, I'm looking for the specific, language from that meeting. Back in March, Ryan had been here, and had kind of discussed, the different segments that had previously been completed. That was the point where we moved forward with rock pouring. And then we did review kind of the options, for what we wanted to do. Visited in, trying to see if we would actually like move that decision at that point, or maybe we can make that in November for you guys to actually like
But you had to go in order, correct? If I remember right, you had to do 17 first.
Yes, because you have to connect to the
Yeah.
existing system.
So you have to do
Yep.
17, you can include.
Yeah, you can't hop.
Okay.
So I think if I recall, the last time we left it, is the board was gonna look at the available funds. We're trying to forecast what the available funds were for a project. My recommendation would be to package them all as one and include some as bid openers, and that way at least you can get some pricing for them. You can always include them if you end up with additional funds. But I would say 17, 18, 19, and 7. And then you guys can decide on the one, whether you're not going to package that one as well.
Okay, so it looks like. June. Looks like at a previous meeting, I had presented the options for putting the project out for bid. We wanted to wait. And the discussion and direction staff was to pursue, bidding for 17, 18, and 19, with 19 being the bid alternative based on funding.
So right now, Madam Chair, you have about 1.1 million available, and your increment for 2024 at the end of August was 680,000. And so, with the updated prices here, you would have segment 17, 18, and you could probably cover 19 depending on when you did that. The December tax payments come in, and then they're posted to us about January. And so at that point, you would have another, let's say, $300,000 coming in, plus any interest that you've gained on these accounts. And so I think that's why at the time we talked about doing 17 and 18, you confidently could pay for those. 19 could be an alternate. And so that's probably still the way to go, is to get going on those bidding docs.
And we don't necessarily have to have the money in the account to at least go out for bid. Because if they're gonna take 9, 10, 11, 12 months, there'd be another.
Yeah, and so, just as a reminder, it's not actually the URA that goes out to bid. We ask our friends at the city of Lewiston to bid this out. We have a contract with the city of Lewiston to reimburse them for all the money. That, you know, we're basically saying, we can cover this much. They are obviously aware of our finances because they attend our meetings and we're very open about that. They manage the project, and then just like the invoices that you have today, they bill us for those invoices. And so we would be approaching the city of Lewiston because the council would approve any contracts with any contractors on what that looks like. And so we're asking the city to please process this and manage this project for us. And we would say that we would like to go out to bid for 17, 18, and 19 as an alternate.
But then, don't we have to decide whether we want like Rippon as a gravity feed?
Yeah.
Because the bid is gonna, isn't that gonna determine the depth? And that
So-
has to go to the bid.
Right, so that decision was essentially made.
Oh, okay.
So the design as it currently sits has that as the decision. So, from gravity, and I would actually add to that probably too, that, so there's a couple of ways you can do this. I always recommend this, you can see the changes in cost.
Yeah.
Just from last year. Say the earlier you guys can get these done, the better. We're seeing price increases slow a little bit, but they're still increasing. And the nice thing about it, if you bid all something, even if you're not sure that you'll have enough money for it, at least then you have some pricing for it to go into your plan for the next cycle. You can then tackle that one of two ways. So let's just say that 19 and 7 were bid alts, and you didn't have enough money to award those. You could do one of two things. You could either repackage those as another package and rebid it, or let's say you really like the contractor that's doing 17 and 18 and they get done with that. Say, okay, we've got more money now. We want to do 19 and 7 or just 19. Then you can negotiate, whatever their modest price change would be based on material amounts. So it's nice getting that pricing back, even if you're not sure. The core fee, the core feature is that we need to have, whatever's in the base bid, you need to know that you're gonna have that money.
Which 17 and 18 you do currently.
So it wouldn't hurt putting 7 in there as an alternate. That's what you're saying.
19 and 7, yeah, it would give you a good idea.
Procedurally, though, since it's not an action item, we have to just a consensus to put it on next month's action item.
Well,
Or-
so you guys already provided that direction at a previous meeting, so I think we can just move forward with that direction. They would bring everything back for you guys to basically approve before it gets sent to council for council's approval.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not voting for, yes, let's go, you're voting
Yeah.
for, yes, bring those documents back to me.
Yeah.
Well, you're not voting, you're saying, yes, we've previously decided we would like to see those documents. I'm gonna tell them, we would like to see those documents, you guys would then vote on those documents. And then that goes out for council.
So you're recommending that we take that action today?
You guys already took that action.
Yeah, she's saying we did it
And
at
I-
a previous meeting.
Yes, I'm saying let's continue to move forward with that, and we will tell our friends at the city in Merrick, yes, we're moving forward with that with this additional information that you've, the updated information that you
Yeah.
provided.
Bring us the document.
Yes,
Bring us another update.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Perfect, thank you, Brian.
the only thing, the only thing I might add is if it's getting more expensive, and I know the property values are way higher than when the project plan was done. Would it be advantageous to try to do a bond and get more of it done early while the prices are lower? I'm
We
not-
still
I'm not sure.
have a bond, is, would be my only concern, I don't know how well dueling bonds would work. I mean, we could research that possibility. But given that there's still a bond on this existing project, I don't know that that's necessarily the path to go. They want to secure a second bond.
Yeah, when the original bond was done, the city fronted the URA $1 million that we still owe to them. We owe like $550,000, plus you have those bond, reserves. And so so you would essentially you have 1.1 million, you would essentially wipe yourself out by doing the bond guarantee. Then you're putting yourself in jeopardy of making the other bond payments. If that makes sense. And so, yeah, I mean, certainly staff can always look into that type of thing. You don't have anything else designed. So you'd have to go through, that's the other thing that Katie presented in the past was, you keep going. Yes, we're gonna go and do these, construction projects. The other route you could take is keep designing. But because of escalating prices,
Right,
they don't
right.
wanna start construction now.
Okay.
Yeah,
It sounds like it would really complicate things.
I think it would, and when we discussed last year, we went through like all of the segments, number of houses, costs, all that stuff. I mean, I think ultimately, the way we're gonna get your most bang for buck is build, design, build, design, build, design, and just kind of work our way
Mhm.
across that region and through those segments, and get as many of them hopefully as we can done. And if we end up, ending on like a design year, then, we have a design package that we can hand over to the city and be like, we did this part for you, maybe you can find grants or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a smarter direction to go rather than
Yeah,
trying
makes
to
sense.
bond again. And if we were, if it was, say we were a little farther in the process, say we had more things designed, say we were closer to paying off the existing bond, then yeah, it might make more sense, but we only have so many segments already designed. We still have quite a bit that we owe for the bond and to pay back the city, so. It would be a gentleman act for sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your work. Anybody else have any questions? As we move on?
Just an observation that rock mooring is not a boring subject.
There you go.
It is fun, like this is a really cool graphic. I spent a lot of time looking at all the different notes because I find some of that cool. But yeah, so I did send all of you guys that link, so
Okay.
if you did want to play with it more, you are free to do so. So
Perfect.
it's pretty interesting, all the different pieces of information they found for us, so.
All right, well, I'll open it up to board member comments. Anybody have any comments? Good. I attended the September 10th open house at the library. Thought that was pretty informative. Well attended, I saw you there, but you didn't see me. But anyway, I thought it was pretty useful information. Is there going to be any need for us to help with anything? I know that they had recommended we go last time, so I didn't know. what they were.
So next month, we will be having a conversation about downtown.
Okay.
Both our, RAA and, city staff and the consultant's gonna come too, right, Luke?
What, sorry?
So the next RA, or next, URA meeting, to do some presentation on the downtown project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Yes, okay.
I can't remember.
We worked with
if you are
Melissa.
or not.
Yeah, we worked with Melissa to have her come.
Yeah, so they will, become, and we will talk about that
Okay.
project and how it relates to, we'll do a little review of our plan, funding projections, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anybody else have any comments? All right, open it up for staff comments.
I think my only one, so next meeting is November 12th. Like I said, we are gonna have a presentation from the consultant working on the reimagined downtown. We will be doing a review of both that RAA projections, et cetera, how projects in RAA might relate to the reimagined downtown project. So trying to get those thoughts forming with you guys. So otherwise I would just need, if anybody knows that they're not gonna be able to attend,
I know I will be out of.
no show. Okay. That meeting is on, November 12th. Anybody else?
Not a lot to this, am I?
The other Joe is here. Technically, the beauty of the night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ian Keeks.
I will not be attending.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm flying to Florida for the simulator on the 12th.
Yeah, I could potentially attend on Zoom if needed.
If we are short, folks, that'll definitely be an option.
All right, there being no other staff comments, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Bye.
All those opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. That's bad.
So the
My
camera
bad.
wasn't- You can't see it, but the camera wasn't working the whole time.